Okay, it is Tuesday, July the I know it's not. My calendar's behind. Let me flick it over here. It's Wednesday, July the 3rd. Been so busy I haven't even flicked my calendar. And welcome to the beginning and start of the next 11 weeks, Introduction to Corrections. And I am Richard Wright, Professor Richard Wright, Dr. Wright, whatever you want to call me in terms of that. And I am going to spend time going over the details of this course. And this is something that is very, very, very important for students to understand. In this course, there is, and so one student needs to activate audio. She can't hear me, but she has to activate the audio to hear the lecture. And so anyway, because this is a course that students don't have to give a keyword or anything for the lecture, many students don't come to the lectures and they don't listen to the lectures. And because of that, you're doing a disservice to yourself, because there's some instructions and guidance that if you were to come to the lectures, or at least listen to the recording itself, you would receive benefits that will help you in terms of questions. And I could tell from questions from many students throughout the course. I've taught this course probably about 6 quarters or so, and I can tell you that I have learned to cover in detail. Today's session is going to be a rather lengthy one. I say an hour and a half. It may sometimes even go a little longer, but you want to hang in here for this one because of the fact that it contains a lot of details, and I'm going to spend a lot of details explaining to you the requirements for this course. And also, I'm going to break down week by week the requirements of the course project, which is something that I encourage students not to wait till the last minute to get going on. I get so many students who do this the wrong way, and I'm going to give you some guidance today about how to do that. So in order to hear the lecture, you have to go over and click on audio. Some of you already know, see audio connection, and then it'll tell you how to connect your audio using a phone or using a computer. So there are students who log in and they can't hear, and okay, you got it. All right, very good. And so it is important that you do it that way. So let's go ahead and get started, because I got a lot of things I want to share with you tonight. All right. Let's go right to my course homepage, which all of you, let's see, I made that too big. Let me just make that smaller. Come on, Richard, right? This always gives me fits. Okay, I can move it around, but I want to make it smaller. Here we go. Let's shrink it down. All right. So anyway, right off the bat, this is a page that you should be familiar with. When you first log into your course home, then you will see course, so you'll see all your courses. But then if you click on this particular course, which is J115 CJC 1000, Section 1, Introduction to Corrections Online, Summer 2018 quarter, it will lead you to this page. And on this page, I have an abundance of material. I probably have more material than some of the other instructors do. But first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Richard Wright. You should know something about me because of the fact that you took time to look at the student lounge, which was provided early on, and telling you to look at that and you see some things about me. Well, you're going to learn more things about me even tonight. So this is my phone number. you can keep that number and use it. That is actually this number right here. It is, I think I got it in my pocket, I do. It's this number. Get that receipt out of the way. It's this. It's my cell phone, and it goes everywhere with me. In fact, it tells me things like when my sessions are taking place. It tells me about my text messages, which I have text messages from students that come to me all the time. And so you want to make sure that you utilize that as a basis for being able to reach me. And so anyway, here's when you can do this. This is a true statement. It means what it says. It is not an exaggeration. It is something that I have, students who've had me in other classes will tell you. Many of you in this class might not have had me, but some of you may have from previous times with this course. But anyway, you'll discover that this is my policy, which I have implemented years ago, and it has worked very well. I say students can feel free to call me. There's the number. Text me. There's the number. Some of you have already taken advantage of that. Now, when you do text me, please be sure that you provide me the course that you're texting me about, because I teach several courses. And also provide me with your name, because I won't know the number, because that's all I'll get. So you can text me or email me. You can email me through the course or my personal email, which is listed also. It's also in the student lounge that I have for you, Richard@WrightGodIsAble.net. And you could do that any hour of the day. Did you hear me? Except the 25th hour of the day. And you figure that one out. I'm not going to elaborate on it because you want to understand how this whole thing works. So when you do that, don't hesitate to do it. Don't say, oh, you know, some students says I was going to do it, but it was 1 in the morning. Do it. 2 in the morning. Do it. 3 in the morning. Do it. 4 in the morning. 5. You'll be surprised. Sometimes I'm upgrading papers, and I will be able to respond to you right away. Sometimes I'll respond to you the next day. The rule of the school is that I have to respond within 48 hours. I always respond before that, because I check my messages constantly. And my text messages that you send me, they're on my phone, and I don't like my messages to build up. My emails that are sent through the student mail, that's sent to my richard.wright@rasmussen.edu. Kill your video. Turn your video off. Turn your video off. There's a little link down at the bottom which has a camera, and you want to turn that video off because it's going to take up a lot of bandwidth. There we go. Yeah, make sure that you kill your video. Not that I don't like to see your smiling faces, but when we start to go through this, sometimes it takes up a lot of the bandwidth, and it sometimes creates internet problems. So anyway, so the 25th hour of the day, that's it. If you don't try to reach me the 25th hour of the day, all right? Because you won't get me, and I'll let you figure out why not. Now, I'm going to say up front, I'm going to say this over and over and over and over and over and over during this course. Rubrics are critical. Following the rubrics, and we will discuss that tonight, you will see that that's how I grade you guys. That's how I determine what you did good and what you did bad. Most of the times, I try to focus on things that you made mistakes on that you need to correct in future papers. Now, be aware of the fact that the most common errors that people do is APA. And, I'm going to provide, we have some information that can help you with APA. Also, within the next week, I will be posting a special announcement about an APA seminar and a seminar that is online that you want to take advantage of, because many of you in this course are new students. And even if you aren't a new student, you'll want to take advantage of that. So keep your eye on that announcement. I will be posting that probably the end of this week or the beginning of next week, and you'll want to participate in that. But APA is so important in this school. You should hear it over and over. And I'm just going to touch bases on the general requirements of it in just a few minutes. And then critical thinking. Critical thinking in your papers. I want to see what's in this good mind of yours. I want to see you analyze. I want you to take information and I want you to break it down. I want you to apply your good thinking to the issues that you're confronted with in your assignments. Sure, you're going to do research. Sure, you're going to provide credible sources, but you're also going to provide some ideas that you have pertaining to that. Analyze it, break it down. Even if you don't agree, explain why you don't agree, and then provide something to support your position as well. That's what I did for many years. As you saw, I was a criminal defense lawyer for many years. I had to do that many, many years. And so critical thinking, but we'll talk more about that in just a minute. All of these are important in grading the assignments. But rubrics. Now, I will tell you this about rubrics. When you see the rubric, I'll just reserve that till we get to it. You'll see that it provides what you need to do, but it also provides a section for me to make comments on rubrics where I can tell you what you did wrong and what you did right. Now, I'll generally tell you that I appreciate the time and effort that you put into completing this assignment. That's my patented line. That's because I do appreciate you taking the time and effort. But then I will then tell you what you could have done to make your paper better. And my goal is to provide excellence to my students. So anyway, additional course information, and it's in bold, it's in caps, all caps. Some people say caps mean yelling. Well, maybe that's your generation. Not to me. It means pay close attention to it because of the fact that it's telling you something that's very, very important. And if it's italicized or if it's bold, like, you see the 25th hour and you see rubrics. But it says you are required to conduct research for all papers. That means that the sole source of this paper cannot be the textbook, which reminds me, I will be sending you, after this lecture is over, the PowerPoints for the reading for this week. And each week you will get the PowerPoints that will help you. Now, I won't use the PowerPoints in lectures, but what the PowerPoints do is they provide details so that you will be able to use that information to help you to be able to complete the assignments. And it will help you to prepare for the quizzes that will be coming up in this course. And there are some quizzes that are coming up in this course, and you'll see as they come up in terms of assignments. And so your textbook should not be the sole source. You should conduct research. And if you do use your textbook straight out the bat, that corrections textbook, you will lose 2 points for failure to conduct research. That's right off the bat. That's not in the rubric, but that's telling you. And then look at the word all, A-L-L. Written assignments should be in APA format. That means citations in the body, and references at the end. Now that's just the biggest part where students mess up. But also, you want to do the third part here, provide a cover sheet. And your cover sheet should be formatted correctly. You have systems like NoodleBib to help you to format your cover sheets. And APA format sets it out. So you become very familiar with that. And then Roman 12, that should be the font size. And when you have Roman 12 will provide the details for the correct font that we want you to have, all right? And so very, 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 very important. Make sure that you do cite your resources in your papers as well. Very important. You don't get a half a point for correctly providing citations and not references. You get your points correctly if you provide all of it. And the reason why is because I teach students this. I'm very adamant about it because it's going to benefit you further down the road. You're going to be glad that I was like this. And students who have graduated that have been my students, will, if you ever meet any of them, they'll say, yeah, he's tough on APA, but I'm glad he was because now I know how to prepare in terms of my employment situation. And anyway, so that's very, very, very important. So I provide some helpful resources for you. There are guides here that will help you. One of the most important ones is this one right here. And if I click on it, it actually opens up. And it seems like it's one page, but it's not. If you hover over the word like APA, click on APA, look at what it does. It opens up a whole myriad of things from the APA toolkit to helping you to prevent plagiarism. It explains formatting, in-text citations, all of that stuff there. Then there's a nice little short video in there as well. So you want to utilize that resource. And so you go back for Grammarly. Each one of you should know that you have a Grammarly account. And if you click on this, it explains how to create your account, everything from A to Z. It's a free account. Doesn't cost you anything, but you want to make sure that you follow the steps here to do so. And you need to run every one of your written papers. Now, let me say this to you while I'm talking about it. I don't require it for discussion posts, okay? But it's okay. It's a good habit to have. So anyway, create your Grammarly account. And then when you run your papers through Grammarly, make sure you check. There's a little place for you to check when you go through it. And I won't go through it and show you, but how to get to your plagiarism so that you can check that out too. So everything you want to know is found on this guide page. Tutoring, webinar series, YouTube information, articles, and so forth and so on. Okay, somebody's mic is on, and I don't know whose it is. I can hear them. Okay, there we go. All right, so now it's off. So anyway, how to chat with a librarian. All these different things. There's so many. Technical support, which you will find at the bottom of every page. If you have a technical issue, don't reach out to me. Reach out to personal support. And then they have this thing for new students that need help. You can click on that, and it'll lead you to resources. So we have all kinds of things that will help you there on that. So that's right there for your benefit. All right. So then there's tutor assistance. I'll skip over that. Then there's some articles in here that I've provided that are PDF that you can download and print yourself or put it on your course homepage, your desktop, or you can make a folder, and you can do however way. Going beyond the textbook. and how to help you with that. Analytical tips. This helps you with critical thinking. Importance of information literacy, finding credible resources and things of that nature. Referencing, dealing with, again, the citations and references, and also dealing with when you cite a court case, how to properly cite the court case. A lot of you will see Justia and you'll see Oyez, but try to find the court case citation. You can find it quite easily. Actually, I'll give you a little tip. If you use Google, put the name of the case, so-and-so versus so-and-so, it's a popular case, it will tell you the name of the case, it will tell you the year of the case, it will tell you the so-and-so, so-and-so, John versus Doe, and then it'll tell you in parentheses, it'll tell you the case book, it'll tell you the kind of book it is, and then it'll tell you the page, and then in parentheses, you put the year. That's it. That's it for cases. And you'll find that out as well. And then to help you with critical thinking, as I talked about earlier, one of our transferable skills, which we'll just elaborate on in a little later when we get to the syllabus, provides information to help you deal with your critical thinking and analysis. What I'm telling you guys here in my class applies to all of your classes pretty much. And so I believe in preparing students for student success. That's my goal. That's what I love about my job. You know, I'm a 69-year-old. People says you should be retired. I says I am, but I'm doing what I love, and that is helping students to be successful. And you'll hear me say this over and over. My goal is to provide educated, professional, and ethical criminal justice students, not in that order, but all those other three tiers that we operate from. And then I talk about rubrics, and I remind you they're located in each weekly assignment and the course project. And then the discussion post, there's a generic one. Now, let me say something about discussion posts so I don't have to spend a lot of time when we get later on into this. First of all, discussion posts are due Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, which meant yesterday, and then every Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, let me say this to you up front. Your post should be detailed and should demonstrate that you actually are addressing the issues. Even if you're responding to a student, don't just say good post, I like the post, good job. No, elaborate. Present your position. Present what you liked about it. Present some analysis and details in it as well. I do encourage students to submit posts, reply posts, as many as possible, because it makes the discussion forum and it allows you to interact with your classmates, and you get to know each other in terms of working together. Because after all, the discussion forum is what we utilize in place of us being in a physical room every week going over the materials. Now, I will tell you this. This is how I grade. If they're good, I let you know. I'll tell you it's good content, good information, good details. If it's not, I'll tell you you need to provide more of that. But then I also will tell you if your assignment is late. For example, this is due yesterday. Anybody who submits a post today that was due yesterday will lose 1 point. And that means that they will start out with 1 less point than the total they're supposed to get. And by Thursday, they'll lose 2 points. By Wednesday, 3 points. And so it keeps, by Thursday, they will lose 2 points. By Friday, they'll lose 3 points. And by Saturday, we'll have lost 4 points. Now, you can submit both of your posts on Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if they're a good post, then you'll lose points for the lateness, but you'll get your full points for that Saturday on time. Now, let me say this to you. If you submit your initial post within the time of the discussion forum, which is really from the assignment starts on Monday all the way through until Saturday night. That's when it ends, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's when the discussion ends. If you submit your assignments on Sunday, both of them, you will get no points. But if you previously submitted your initial post before Sunday, that is earlier than Monday, some people submit them before that, but the point of the matter is that it's on time before Tuesday of the week that the discussion post is due, and then the reply post is submitted, then you're okay. But if you submit no post until Sunday, then you're going to get 0. You're going to get 0. And, you know, sometimes I'm not dogmatic about 12 o'clock, but I have to be dogmatic about a person who submits a discussion post and a initial post and a reply post on at 12 o'clock Sunday morning, because nobody can even respond to your post because they should have responded during the course of the week, and that's the reason for that. And so I'm going ahead of myself on some things because I'm saving some time in terms of that. All right. So now let me get down to this. I don't know why that's closed up. Let me open it. There we go. The live classroom sessions. It's an open house, which is taking place today. Live lectures will take place every other Wednesday, beginning next week. And what I do is I operate on even weeks. So from this week, you can think in terms of when the lecture is taking place. Professor Wright, weeks 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Those are even weeks. Now, be aware that there are assignments that are related to the well, week 2, I'll cover the project issue. Week 4, there's an assignment due. In week 7, there's another assignment due, and you'll see that in the project. But I'll cover that during week 6. And then during week 8, I'll cover the final project, which will be due week 9. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we get down there. So that's why I said it's important for you to pay attention to the live lectures, even if you can't attend. Again, students say to me, well, do I get points for it? Yes, you get good points because of the fact that you get points on helping you with your assignments, and your goal should be to complete them. Now, be aware of the fact that with lectures, just so you know, is that the requirement for this course is for me to do 1 lecture for 11 weeks. And that's it. Today would be it. And I don't have to do any more. But that's not the way I roll. I go the extra mile, and that's what the school knows about me, is that I'm a hands-on professor when it comes to my students. Of course, with that ability to contact me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day demonstrates that. But my commitment in terms of live lectures is to take the time, and somebody asked me, why do we do them so late? The reason I do them so late is I tried to do them earlier, and it didn't work out because people were working, or people are working at night. But the fact of the matter is that there are less interruptions in the evening, and it works pretty well for my schedule as well. So anyway, it's very important that you take the time to, if you can't come to the lecture, to listen to the recording. All right? And again, it's not like a plus course, which is a 5.5 course where you have to listen for this keyword. I don't have any of that stuff. I'm just giving you some key information. But the recordings will be placed here after the day for the one for this week, and then it will be emailed to you as well. So that's it on that side. So now let's go here. I've kind of talked about some of this already. The writing process, I'll let you take a look at that. And if you want to follow that, I've already given some details. But I do want to talk about the fact that APA, I already kind of shared you the guide for Rasmussen EDU APA. You know, I showed you the library and learning center resource, but this also is basically will lead you to the same information, but it goes right to the APA toolkit. So no one has any excuses in my course as to why they can't be successful with APA. And there are student tutors who are specifically trained. Your colleagues, some of them, let's see, I don't think I have any in this class, but who have been in this class before, this course, but are in other classes of mine that are really good with and specifically certified and trained to help you with APA issues as well. And then there's some student resources too. Now, I want to stop for a minute before I get to dealing with the welcome announcement. And I want to open this one up here. This one is the academic integrity announcement. And I want you to pay close attention to this. I'm going to copy this. Okay. And you should be able to see this. I'm going to paste it and go. Then I'm going to take off my headset too.
What is academic integrity? Academic integrity is making decisions in your academic life that are based on honesty, trust, fairness, responsibility, and respect. This means being honest in the work you do, while respecting the work that others do. So what is cheating? Cheating means distributing or receiving answers or information by any means other than those expressly permitted by an assignment's requirements or an instructor. Some examples of cheating include asking fellow students for answers or copying answers during a test, using notes, devices, or materials during the test that your instructor has not approved, purchasing papers from websites or other sources, copying your classmate's work, assisting a classmate in misconduct, and other violations as noted in the academic integrity column that can be found in all course syllabi. Always ask your professor if it's okay to use notes during a test or to work together with classmates on an assignment or quiz. Now let's talk about plagiarism. Plagiarism means using another individual's work without giving them credit or taking another person's work and claiming it as your work. Some examples of plagiarism are turning in an assignment that someone else wrote, copying words or ideas from someone else. This can be a library resource, course textbook, internet resource, or other material without giving the original creator credit, failing to put quoted works in quotation marks, or using someone else's ideas in your essays, but changing a few of the words to make it sound like the words are your own. Plagiarism is not just about written words and ideas. It's possible to plagiarize images, graphs, coding, or video as well. So how can you avoid plagiarism? Cite your sources, both in the body of your paper as in-text citations and on your references page. Whenever you want to use words, images, media, or ideas that were created by another person, you should cite that person appropriately as the source of that information.
But how does academic integrity relate to the work world? Isn't it just a college thing?
No. Integrity in the workplace starts with good practices and skills built while you are a student. Would you turn in a project document to your manager as your own when someone else wrote it? Not if you want to keep your job. Individuals can be reprimanded or even fired from their job for plagiarism. Following academic integrity guidelines while you are in school builds those skills and ethical practices that carry through to the workforce.
Okay, I understand how they're connected, but what do I do if I need more help?
If you have questions on the academic integrity policy, consult your course syllabus, talk with your instructor or dean, and if you need assistance with APA citation style or how to avoid plagiarism, contact the Rasmussen library team through our live chat or schedule a research appointment on our library website or through the resources tab of your course. If you would like APA tutoring, schedule an appointment with one of our peer tutors on the course resources tab.
Okay, that is very important, and it kind of mirrors what I've said to you guys already, and it's very important. One other thing I do want to point out to you that students don't understand, when we do Grammarly checks and we pull plagiarism, what we are referring to, even if you gave citations in the body and references at the end, we are saying that most of that paper consists of information from the sources that you researched, but not offset by your commentary, your critical thinking that is so important. You will take a course in that before you leave the school, but we want you to understand that in today's society, transferable skill important to me, and number one to me is critical thinking. I'm a natural critical thinker because I went to law school and became a lawyer. But critical thinking is something that you guys in criminal justice are going to be faced with on a constant daily basis. Some of you are already working in the field, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So you have to be able to think out of the box, but you also have to do so in an ethical, professional manner. And so when you write your papers, I want to see what's in that gray matter here, that noggin. What did you get out of the assignment? What's your analysis of the information? And the information that supports might be ideas that you got from some research which you properly given credit. So I just wanted to point that out to you. So now let's go down here, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one either because of the fact that I sent it to you. This welcome announcement, you all should have read it by now, or you still will have time to read it, but pay close attention to the highlighted things like the announcements, the student lounge, the course mail, the syllabus, which we'll talk about in a minute, the course calendar, which we'll go over, general course questions. Now, course mail is different from your student mail. The course mail applies to information within this particular course. Now, I want to say this to you. If you have a personal question, you want to send it to me by course mail or directly outside of that to the regular email. But you do not want to use general course questions. This is a question that anybody can answer, including students, and gives you an opportunity to learn from each other. And then there is the resources tab, which is located at the top right. There it is right there. And the resources tab can lead you to a lot of the things that I've already told you about, like APA, Grammarly, tutoring, and so forth. The report tab I don't deal with. It gives you access to your gradebook. In your gradebook, you will see what the score is, and you'll see me put comments in there as to why your score was the way it was. And you got to make sure you pay attention to not just the rubric, but the comments that are under there. and they're included in the grade book at all times. Students miss that, and they just look for the rubric. I says, read down for the comments, because in each section of the rubric, I tell you what you did wrong or what you did right. And then these are some sources that I'm not going to spend time with. And then this is a reminder that we have live lectures every other Wednesday from 8:30 to 9:30 beginning next week, which is our regular time. Now, as I said, weeks 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. All right. And then this talks about the lessons tab. This reminds you of what I said earlier. If you have technical questions, personal support, they are 24/7. They are working the 4th of July if you have problems. They are working Christmas. They are working Thanksgiving. They are working New Year's Day. They work every day. All right, and someone is there who can help you. All right, so that's that. So now let's take a quick look. Well, before I get to the week 1 announcement, I want to go over the, well, no, I can, never mind, I'll come back. I want to do the syllabus. Let's go right to it because I had talked about it earlier. In the syllabus, it is a contract, and it has my name, information, and it reminds you of something that should be familiar to you because you saw it on the course homepage. And it tells, you know, what the textbook is, corrections, a textbook, and you have that yourself. And then it encourages you to check your course messages and announcements. It says at least 3 times a week. That doesn't mean you do it 3 times a week. That means you do it more than that. Discussions, I'm not going to talk about that because I did go over that. The one thing I will say is that for each weekly module, that discussion forum, you're expected to post a thoughtful, detailed response. Examples such as yes, no, I agree, or disagree is not sufficient, and you will lose points or get no points. All right. So now let's go past that. We've already discussed what has to do with discussions. So here's what your course breaks down to. You have readings, you have your discussion posts, you have written assignments. Now those don't include the quiz. And then there's the quiz. Let's see, I think yes, 5. It's 5 quizzes. And they are timed, and you want to make sure that you satisfy the requirements that are necessary for that timed quiz. Then the course project, which I will spend some time today talking about in detail, in which you'll select one of the 4 areas. 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 I know I sound like a broken record, but there's a reason why I'm saying that, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. For this is corrections. Corrections. This is a corrections course. Law enforcement, police, courts have nothing to do with corrections. All right? Just think of it in terms of correcting someone. This is what we're studying. And there's 4 areas that we're going to be addressing. And these are one of the 4 areas that you're going to do your course project on. We'll get there in a minute. And so you're going to interview a staff member of an agency of your choice. Student asked me, oh, what's an agency? An agency is like the Department of Corrections, the Cook County Jail, the Tallahatchie Jail or prison, but not the Tallahatchie Police Department, not the FBI, not any of those. That's law enforcement, again. And then there's going to be a final exam, which will consist of 50 multiple choice questions, and it's very comprehensive. It covers everything from week 1 through week 11. And the best way to prepare for that is, as I said, is to continue to use the outlines that I'm going to give you, which are the actual PowerPoints. And then this is instructions. And now this is how your course breaks down. Since I already gave you up here what they are, you don't see any points for readings, but your points will show up in whether you do the readings based on how well you perform these, because they will help you. Don't skip the readings. Discussion posts, you get 220 points, which you can figure that out. That's 20 points for each week, 10 for initial posts, 10 for reply posts. Written assignments, 305 points. Your course project, 165 points. So if you look up here, you add these together, that's a big portion right there of the 780. And then you'll have 90. So I think it's something like 670, something like that, that this adds up to. I think I'm right. But anyway, if my math is right, but you know what I mean. So you want to make sure that you do well on the quizzes as well, which are timed. And the best way to handle quizzes, I always tell students, is to do them at the end of the week after you've gone through all the materials. And go in a quiet place, and it's only 10 questions. It's only 10 questions. And you're going to have to get through those questions in the time that's allotted, which we'll discuss. Then your final exam, which is 40 points. Now, some people say, oh, wow, that's a small portion. Trust me, when you get down here, by the time you get there, the way it's weighted, 5.1, it's a difference in A or B. Okay, now, let me let you know where I'm at. This is where I am. A minus, B plus, B minus. That's where I stop. Do not text me, email me, call me, ask me, Professor Wright, what do I do to get a C in your course? I will not answer you. I'm telling you up front. The reason for that is because anybody can produce a C student. I can tell you this. If you're going to be the best and you want to get the best jobs and provide yourself with success in your careers, get into the habit of going the extra mile. That's how I made it as far as I did, because even with adversities that I'm going to share with you, you're going to learn that I still made it despite those circumstances. And you'll find out that I empathize with every one of you, but I am not a professor who, as I tell people, who give out anything. I take the time to work with my students. All right. So, C students, I'm your professor, but personally, you don't need my help to do this. You don't need my help to get anything below a B minus. You really don't. You really don't. And some of you might not need my help to get up here. But the key thing is this, is that I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to be an enabler of C, D, and not F students. So we're not going there. So let's just get that established up front as a policy that I have. And I'm very adamant about it. All right? So I'll help you to get up here. And if you listen to my instructions, I give you information that will help you. And again, I say it again, in this course, where students go wrong is that they don't take the extra time to pay attention to the lectures. All right. Notice what it says here. And it talks about things that I have to do. And I said this earlier. I have 48 hours to respond. I don't do that. I respond before that. I provide my instructor information in the syllabus. Look at what it says here. Look, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I said this earlier. Conduct a synchronous learning session, and it says sessions, during the term as designated by the course requirements. using the virtual classroom software provided. In this case, what we're using here is WebEx. The rule for this course is 1, but I told you I don't roll that way. I still do the other lectures, weeks 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So I do a total of 6 when I only have to do 1. And then my policy that I'm going to try to maintain is to grade all assignments, including discussion forums, by Friday at midnight after the due date. So the due date for assignments is Sunday. So by the end of that week, so for week 1's assignments, my goal is to get your assignments in and complete it by Friday midnight. Sometimes I'll go over that weekend, but my goal is to do that. I have had students that say to me, I did my assignment early in the week. Why am I getting my assignment at the end of the week? That's your answer right there. Sometimes I will grade them as soon as you put them up there, bam. Other times I have to keep moving forward because I have 100 and something students. Right now I have 93, I think, but and when term 2 starts, I'm going to have over 100 and some odd students. So this is my goal in terms of being able to grade assignments. So please, when you communicate with me, include your first and last name as well as the course title, and just the course title. I don't need the course number, but you should use course messaging tools to communicate with me, or excuse me, the tools that I've also extended to you on the course homepage. So now let's talk about transferable skills assessment. The school has identified there are certain skills that are necessary in order to be successful in the work world. And these are the following. You must be proficient in communication, written and oral communication. It is so important that you understand. That's why we're so dogmatic about Grammarly. That's why we're so dogmatic about APA. That's why we're so much in terms of formatting your papers, because you need to be professional when you present your papers to your professor, as well as when you, of course, leave school. And your written communication reports are very valuable. I can tell you that as a criminal defense lawyer, I have embarrassed many of professionals whose reports had wrong dates, who had wrong spelling, who had information, and I use that to my advantage as a defense lawyer. I can tell you that, so it is important that you put the proper information there. And then critical thinking. I've touched on that quite a bit, so I won't spend a lot of time on that, but critical thinking. Employers want critical thinkers that they're hiring. Anybody can copy and paste. Anybody can do some research, but can you analyze it? Can you break it down? Can you think out of the box? Digital fluency, it's here. Everything's digital. I got this thing right here on this phone here. I'm an Android. A lot of you are Apple phone people. But the point of the matter is this, is that you should understand that, I have you see all these little things. You know what they are. They're called apps, short for applications. I have my textbooks in here for my courses in here as apps, and you have digital textbooks. You learn how to operate and use this system of Blackboard. You learn how to utilize listening in WebEx, how to get it so that you can hear me, how you can be able to receive the information. I make it easy for the recordings, because the recordings, I convert them to YouTube to help my students who don't have to worry about dealing with WebEx when you get ready to see the recording itself. But digital fluency, it's here. It's part of society. When I graduated from law school, which was 41 years ago at Northwestern, there was none of this in sight. But now I'm able to do that. I started out residentially teaching. Then they came up and said the program's going online. Yours truly had to get up to speed on that. But digital fluency is here. Makes it possible for me to be sitting here in Romeoville and you guys sitting all over the United States. I have many students who are all over the country. Students who are in Florida, California. I even had a few in Alaska. I had some students who were abroad. So, but because of us learning digital fluency, we can operate in that. We can do a lot of things. Diversity and teamwork. Diversity, first of all, is something that we highly respect and appreciate at this institution, and we encourage our students to recognize that with each other, that each of you are from various backgrounds, different parts of the country, different races, different sexes, different individuals who have different sexual preferences, people who have different religious beliefs or no religious belief, people who have the ability to be able to be respected for who you are, not to be condemning people because they're LGBT and you're not. Respect them, and each person should respect each other. I have been part of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee of our school, which our school has faculty who are involved with that. Our school consists of a very diverse population. You have various races, nationalities. We're free to present our views, by the way, even if you don't agree with our views. I will tell you about my career, but I have criticized police. I have defended police. I have criticized corrections, and I have supported corrections. I have done all of that stuff. And I've been a defense attorney. I've done some local prosecutions. I've done all of those different things. But I still, at the end of the day, respect and appreciate. There are people, friends of mine, who have different political beliefs than I do, but we still respect each other and mutually will do so. And in this class, you will feel free to express your feelings and beliefs. I had a student that told me something in one of her written assignments that was really troubling to me, and I responded to it in the most professional fashion that I could. She got upset, and she took personal offense to it because she said that's what way she was taught. And I said, well, I'm sorry to hear that, because basically what she said, just throw it out to you, she said that African American males have violent tendencies, and I said, whoa, we got to fix this one. And so anyway, we had discussions about it. You can't stereotype people. You just can't do that. That is not right. My grandmother said every tub got to stand on its own bottom, and every person should be judged by who they are. I personally love everybody, even people that I don't agree with. I just hate, though, people that when they get cut, their blood does not show red. Those are the only ones I hate. So far, I haven't found any, though a nurse did tell me that blood is really blue. I said, yeah, that's when it's in the body. I don't see it that way. I see it when it's out of the body. So you understand and know where I'm at. So anyway, diversity is so important. You're going to deal with people from various backgrounds that are different from you, that speak different languages, different cultures. Their way is not wrong, and your way is not right. We have to all respect each other. And that is one of the problems that we have in law enforcement and in corrections as well. And, you know, people have to understand. I teach a course that I'm teaching called Realities of Crime and the Media, and I'm going to be talking about various controversial issues, such as a policeman that was prosecuted here in Chicago, and so if I don't think any of you, you're not in that course because that's a bachelor's course. But anyway, the point of the matter is we talk about issues. You know, we don't operate like it's the elephant in the room. So diversity is important, and teamwork. You're going to work with people from all various backgrounds, various professions. Lawyers are going to work with law enforcement, both defense and prosecution. You're going to deal with judges. You're going to deal with parole, probation, corrections officers, forensics people. You're going to deal with scientific, psychologists, human service people, and all of those. So it's going to be part of a team, and you get accustomed to that. By the way, how do you demonstrate teamwork in this? And that's by basically how you deal with each other in your discussion forums. And that's the tip of how we find ourselves doing it. Ethics and professional responsibility. I'm shaking my head because ethics is something that you should learn at home, but the point of the matter is, and the truth of the matter is that ethics is something that can make you or it can break you. It can lead to your success or to your destruction if you're unethical. I always tell people that if you're an unethical student, you're probably going to end up being an unethical professional, and your career is going to be short, and you're going to run into some obstacles that you don't have to deal with. I have seen some law enforcement people. I've seen some corrections people. I've seen some attorneys. I've seen all kinds of politicians and so forth, and you know what I'm talking about. I am a pastor of a church. I've seen ministers involved as well. But ethics is so important. Yeah, they give you courses here on it, but you have to learn how to operate and follow the procedures and processes of your organization, dealing with professional responsibility, tying it in with ethics. And employers want ethical people as opposed to unethical people. And we give you a chance to operate ethically in this course. That's part of the reason, by the way, now I can say this about APA, about citations and references and plagiarism. All of that, that's why we talked about that in that ethics video as well. Information literacy, finally, is being able to find credible resources that, you don't necessarily, you have to value the resources. Let's say, for example, if there's a research that you're doing on dairy products and the source that you use was paid for and produced by the Dairy Farmers of America, you know it's going to be, written from their perspective, which is fine. But you also want to offset that with some other as well. So the point of the matter is you want to present both sides of the argument. One of the things that we learned in law school very well was how to present a statement and then come back and give both sides on it, and then get the trier of fact, whether it's the judge or the jury, to decide which one that we want to adopt ourselves. And so you will find that if you read any cases, there's a thing in there, we call it dictum. Dictum is a side comment in the case. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what the person believes, but they're providing information and details. And then they'll provide what their holding or decision will be in court cases. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But the point of the matter is information literacy. Wikipedia is a no-no. You'll see that in your rubric, but it is a no-no. And if you use it, you're going to lose points all the time. Well, Professor, why? Because it's a word-based system and can be changed by anybody. Okay, I'm a little behind time here, so I got to move faster. I got to talk about the late assignment submission policy. The late assignment submission policy basically says this: students have up to a week to provide their assignments in. Otherwise, they get a 0. But listen to this. You really don't have to go that far, because each day after the due date, you're going to lose 10 points, or 10% of it, should I say, of the grade. So let's say you start out with a perfect paper on Sunday and you submit it. Excellent. You submit that same paper on Monday, you're going to lose 10% and get 90%. Tuesday, then 80. Wednesday, 70%. By Thursday, you're at 60%, which means you're D and heading to F. And so even halfway through, that week, or 5 days into that week, I should say, you failed. And so that's the way it works. Now, it says here that you may be asked to complete an alternate assignment. Don't put much into that with me. I already disclaimed that, because I don't do that because of the fact that I have so many students. I've done it in very rare occasions, but I don't promote that. Online discussions, I already discussed that. Now, let me talk about the fact that I have the power, as it says, to waive late penalty for any time frame. Did you hear me? You didn't hear me. Any time frame, in case of extenuating circumstances. But they have to be presented to me. My policy generally is, at the end of the weeks 5, heading into week 6, if you have not completed an assignment and submitted it by that time, whether it's late or not, or I've discussed with you why it's over a week late, those kind of things, some circumstances have occurred, then you probably are going to not do so well with that, because we're in the second half of the course. So you want to keep in contact with me. There is no reason why. Don't worry about flooding me with text messages or calling me. I have several students that I know pretty well, and they apologize for calling me so much, but guess what? They end up doing pretty well. First thing I do is get on their case. I says, you're not inconveniencing me. If you say you had an issue and you didn't want to bother me, you were being considerate. I says, no, you're not, because my goal is to produce good students and to help you to maximize your ROI, which is a business term, return on your investment, because you're paying good money to go to school. All right. So anyway, that's the late submission. And then I'm not going to talk about this. And then this is the academic integrity issue that you can take a look at on your own as well. Okay, we always end up going over, but be patient, because this is a very valuable first week for you. Now let's get back to the course home. All right, the course home takes you back to your announcements. So here's our week 1 announcement. It says correctional systems and its history represented. I'm not going to go over in details the way I normally would each week, because of all the things I'm doing today. But section 1, again, I'll send you the PowerPoints tonight, and you'll have that. An introduction to the correction system and a historical perspective. You can go over these things yourself. Then it tells you what's coming up. It tells you your discussion assignment, justification for punishment. It tells you when the due dates are. We've discussed that. Your written assignment for this week, elements of the correctional system. We're going to go over the details of that just for a little bit in a minute. And then there is a time quiz. They are due 11:59 p.m. every Sunday. And then we'll be talking about the course project. introduction this week, and I'll be covering that in just a few minutes, and then remind you that this is an open house. Now, this statement, let's start strong and finish strong, is very important. You're going to understand why adversity is the springboard to success is my motto, and why I apply it to all of my students at the end of this session as I share with you something about myself. So hold that. So now each week you'll see that, or more announcements. So now let's look at the course calendar for just a minute here. Not a lot of questions I ask here. I'm providing more information today. Other days I will ask questions if students are there to ask. Okay, so let's look at the course calendar, and you'll see it. And it tells you, it says, oh, look, it's just a little bitty information. Yes, but click on it, and it opens up, and it provides you with more information. For example, your reading assignment, and then it tells you what it is that you have to take a look at there. Each week you'll see that. There it is. It tells you what section. That's week 2. So anyway, your open house today, you'll see that your next lecture is the 10th, and then the 24th. You see, as I said, and these are even weeks in school. Then your reply post is due Sunday, and then your written assignment, which it talks about here, and it tells you what that is, and it tells you what to do there. And then it says that be sure that you complete this with the citations and references and the 2 pages required. Then I talk about critical thinking. You'll see again that in the rubric as well. Okay, and then it talks about the quiz as well. All right, so then we'll talk about that next week and other things. So now let's go to the week 1. Let's take a look at it. Typical week here. So let's first go look at the assignments. Again, here we go. I just told you what the assignment is. This tells you what you're supposed to do. But if you click on this, it'll open it up, and it'll tell you the due date, and it'll give you the rubric. Now, if you click on the rubric, it's going to open it up. There it is. And let's see if I can move that over a little bit. Let's see, I have to move from the bottom, I think. Yeah, there we go. So anyway, you see it right here. And so you go down, and it tells you 15 points for the quality, content, and accuracy, which is misspelled, but we have to fix that at another time. For 60% of your grade, which is most of your grade, it gives you the same details that you're supposed to. Now look at this. Here's a clue about your assignment that you're going to have coming up for the project. Students provide details concerning the 4 components of corrections. These are the only 4 and no more. Probation, parole, jail, and prison. Students will provide details as to how each component fits into the correctional system. And let me close that up. And then it tells you 2 pages, minimum requirement. And this tells you things that you can do that will help you to get these 5 points. We're dealing with the grammar, punctuation, and stuff. Then we get down here with the APA. And you see what I've already been talking about, and then Wikipedia. Many people lose 5 points right off the bat. Now, by the way, while I am telling you this, when you write your papers, Don't throw a citation in there. Just citations should support the statements in your body. People have 2 pages of paper and have 1 citation in the body, and I say that's bad. You're going to lose points, because that means you're not really doing this well, because the citations should provide support for the statements that you provide, and they're not your own ideas. Trust me, because you're not experts in this area. And they should be in paragraph form, not a long paragraph, but in paragraph form. And most paragraphs average 5 to 6 sentences. And so then that's how you get your 25 points. So you're going to see this is real standard right here for all of them. But up here is where you got to make sure you satisfy the requirements. So it's right there. So what will happen is that when you see in the grade book, for example, you'll see me grading it, and then there will be comments under it before you get to the next section. And if there is no comments, like for example, if you did everything good here, I'll just put a check mark here. And then, but sometimes there'll be a check mark, and then you know you lost points. I'll tell you why you lost points. So you need to be aware of that. Okay? So that is very, very, very important. So then the next assignment, which is the discussion post, I've already talked to you about that, and you're going to deal with this issue as well. And then your quiz, 10 multiple choice questions, 1 minute per question, 10 minutes. All right? And some student says, what? Yeah, that's what you get. And you'll have only 1 opportunity to complete the exam. And during the exam, you'll be alerted when you've used half your time, and again when you have 5 minutes left as well. So, and then it tells you what we talked about. By starting this exam, you abide by the academic misconduct policy, and you can be expelled from the school if you don't. We talked about that. We don't allow notes to be used. You don't work in teams with that and that kind of thing. All right. The tutoring team will not tell you about preparing too much for this. They might give you some tips, but they're not going to tell you about the content or discuss the materials. All right. Not going to do that. That would be a violation of the academic misconduct policy. So now let's get into, I know we're going to go much longer because I got a lot, I still got to cover this project. All right, these are your assignments. Again, laid out. I've already talked about these. I talked about this and this. Tutoring support. And then, you know, I would cover and to have a lecture discussing some of these issues. So you're going to need to read these things. And then this historical perspective, what you do is if you see something that looks like this, just click on this and then allow, and it'll open up. And then you could look at the history of corrections, and you click on each of these. Like this talks about the code of Hammurabi, which I was introduced to in law school because it was stuck on the wall at the law school. And then you can go through and it explains the history of corrections, and then you can click on each of these, and it'll tell you more and more and more. All right. So now let's talk about the all-important project. All right, guys, pay close attention. Close attention. And I read the very first line for a reason. In this course, you will select one of the 4 components of the correctional system, which I already shared with you in one of your written assignments, which is in parentheses. That's probation, parole, jail, or prison. That's it. That's it. And again, I told you, students who don't pay attention when they start to do their course project, they don't read that part. And they don't listen to the lecture because the lecture tells you over and over. I will promise you, and I can't tell you who it would be, but don't let it be you, that will start to submit your assignment during week 2 and give me an agency that is outside of one of these 4. You're going to get warned, and you can get a 0. So what you're going to do is you're going to determine what area. Here's what I always tell students. Think in terms of the area that you want to go into yourself. Even if you change it, at least some idea. Some of you already work in corrections. I have a person who told me already that works in corrections. So they can do their report where they work at and have a superior interviewed and do research concerning their organization. Contact the staff or person at an agency. This is where students start off messing up because they wait. You know about it now. You know what you need to do. Get on that. Get on that, and you'll see why I'm telling you in just a minute. Schedule an in-person interview. Did you hear me? Schedule an in-person interview now so that you can learn firsthand what it's like to work in the field. Ask if you can tour the facility or agency. However, we do recognize that due to security and data privacy issues, some agencies may not be able to accommodate more than an interview. So you won't be able to go through the facilities, but an interview. Now, when you're doing your interview should be in person. That's the optimal way. But a telephone or a web interview, video interview may be acceptable with my prior approval. Listen to me. I'm giving it now. I know what's going to happen. And people tell off on themselves they didn't pay attention to the recording. I'm telling you, you can do that. You don't have to say, they said I can't have an in-person interview. Can I do a telephone interview? I just said it. I answered it. Yes. So you'll have some assigned interview questions, and these are questions that are going to be provided for you that you'll need to use when you get to week 7. Also, explore an area I said that is an interest to you. And in addition to your interview, conduct some research about the background of your agency. You can do that through the internet and other ways. You don't just have to ask the person that you're interviewing and possible solutions to the challenges from your interview. So now we're showing you how your various skills that we talked about apply. While working this project, you'll have an opportunity to display your communication in written and oral communication because you're going to be in a professional manner when you conduct the interview, and you're going to use grammar, sentence structure, and spelling, all of these things. Remember, I already talked about these. And then there are many resources available to help you, and I already told you about the resources tab. Dealing with diversity and teamwork. Through your interview questions, you'll develop a better understanding of working with people from various backgrounds and perspectives. That's what this interview process and project does. Now, here are the due dates for them. Your final project is due week 9. I told you that earlier. Each of these assignments are graded separately. Notice the ones that are highlighted. So that means in week 2, you're going to select an agency and contact person. We're going to talk about that next week. And I already told you what kind of agency. And a contact person. And you're going to provide your information. You're going to see what's in week 2. There's nothing in week 3, but that doesn't mean you wait until week 4. Agency overview and background. We will be talking about that during the lecture that I do in week 4, because that's an even week. And then your interview report will be due in week 7. Week 7's interview report will involve the interview questions that you'll see right up under here that says requirements. Now, you will see that there's certain requirements that I'll be talking about during week 6 to cover, since there is no lecture for week 7. All right? And then week 9, your final, I'll cover that during week 8. But here are your interview questions. These are the required questions. Plus these questions here, 3 other questions of your choice. Now, let me say this to you from the beginning. When you are doing your papers, make sure that it's clear what question you're doing. You can put question number 1, what are the minimum requirements, but don't just give me a list. Write narratives, giving me details about that information. And I suggest to students save the caption interview for your future paper, because you're going to end up needing it when you get down to your final submission. So these are the interview questions. I promise you, some people are going to say, what are the interview questions? I'm going to say, go back and listen to the open house, and you'll find it there. Or go back to Module 1, and they won't find it because they'll go back and look under the assignments. They won't look under this. Research into the agency. These are some of the things. These are the minimal things. There could be other things, but we're going to be very seriously looking when you see the rubric, when we go over that for week 4. This goes in, so this is really week 7's assignment here. This is actually week 4's assignment. So week 4 is agency overview and background. Week 7 is the interview report using these questions and the 3 here. Dealing with the ethics and professional responsibility, understanding how the ethical and professional responsibilities of conduct where you are employed. As a part of your review of the agency, you choose to research include the mission statement and function. Very important, very important, very important. And then we talk about digital fluency, utilizing at least one website that provides general information, and then digital influence continues to be identified as a necessary skill. Remember, I already told you that, so you know that. And we talked about these things here. Now, to continue to develop these skills, you should include a minimum of 3 resources, such as a book, a journal article, and a website, in addition to your interview, should be a part of your paper. When you come to week 9, you'll see all of that information. And I already told you about information literacy, so I'm not going to repeat that. Each of these assignments are giving you grading criteria, because for each assignment, you'll see a rubric. And then if you have any questions, put them in the general course questions, or just reach out to me. And then this is information regarding tutoring. And that's the course project, succinctly laid out for you. It's only 4 assignments, 2, 4, 7, and 9. 2 is the shortest one, and you want to make sure that you satisfy the requirements of them. Okay? And so those are the things that I want to share with you. So now, in as quickly a time as I can do this, let me stop sharing this, go back into the classroom. I want to tell you guys what I meant by adversity is the springboard to success. And it's 10 o'clock now, about the time. So hang in there, and I'm going to do this as quickly as I possibly can. I am very, very, very professional and good at what I do. I was good at what I did as an individual because criminal justice is such an important area in the lives, and it can impact and affect the lives of people. Your professor, when he was 7 years old, his dad took him to a baseball game, Memorial Day of 1957. And in that time, we went to see the Chicago White Sox play. We came home. It was my mom at home, a guy who rented a room there, my dad, and my 5 sisters, who were all younger than me. And we were put in a bed, and that night, a fight broke out in the house. And when the fight broke out, the man took a knife out. And he took the knife out, and with the lights on and everything, he stabbed my dad in the forehead with the knife, and the blood came streaming out. He ran out. Well, after that, my father died. The man was never prosecuted. In fact, the case was nolli prosequi, which in Latin means there was no prosecution, and they said there were no witnesses to what happened. Well, yours truly can tell you what happened in that room like yesterday because I have a photographic memory, but they wouldn't interview a 7-year-old, and everybody else was younger. My mom, who witnessed it, said that my dad was the aggressor, and the reason why is because I would find out later that she loved the guy and was actually having an affair with him. I found this out many, many years later. So we continued living in the house with this man after that. And from 1957 to 1962, when I was 12 years old, I witnessed domestic violence in my home. My mother was beaten profusely, guys, like the movie The Burning Bed, like Tina Turner was in What's Love Got to Do with It, and other battered situations. My mom was cut with a knife. She was beat with a bat. The guy would go to jail, and she'd go back and get him. If any of you take the course, domestic violence, you'll discover that there's a thing called cycle of abuse that takes place. And so the individual was very, 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 very much a violent individual. And so I saw this with these 2 eyes. And I used to have to rub my mom with witch hazel. Well, the area that we lived in began to change over. It became bad. There were gangs. But the gangs decided not to recruit me because they said that they knew about what happened. Both sides, the opposing gangs, made a pact that they would not recruit Richard Wright because I was the only surviving male. That was before drugs and crack cocaine, when gangs were different than they are now. But even aside from that, it was so bad, my mom decided that she would move. In the meantime, my mom had 2 more kids, and they were both girls. And so we moved from the west side of Chicago in the Lawndale area into an area in Gary, Indiana, which was a very nice area, single-family home. By the way, the home that we lived in before was a 2-flat, which my mom and dad had owned. And so we lived in our own property during that time. So we moved to Gary in a single-family home, and this man moved with us. His name was Webster Scott. For many years, I couldn't say his name, not because of legal issues. I just couldn't say it, but I'm okay with saying it now, and I've been okay with saying it for years. Anyway, when he moved with my mom and us, the beatings stopped when we moved into Gary because an aunt came from Michigan, who was my mother's sister, and she was pretty tough. And she actually carried a pistol in her purse, so it was still pretty. We were still in a pretty rough situation. But anyway, he didn't bother her. So my mom ended up getting a restaurant in downtown Gary. In early May of 1963, a year after we had moved there, my mom's sister left. And after that, he started raising issues with my mom. And spinning ahead to Memorial Day of 1963, which was the 30th, that was when Memorial Day was celebrated then, as it was in 57. My mom left me in charge of the house, as I commonly was, and she'd go to her restaurant. And she would, she would stay gone sometimes, and her bed wasn't slept in, so, that's what would happen. So I was in charge. Well, anyway, this particular occasion, Memorial Day, we all went to bed. I put everybody to bed, cleaned up the kitchen, and early the next morning, it was still dark. I woke up, there was smoke in the house. And I went into the kitchen and opened the oven, and there was some barbecue that was in the oven. And I opened the door and opened the windows and let the smoke out. When I did that, I looked and I saw my mom's car, and they were pulling away. The car was pulling away. So anyway, I cleared out the smoke, looked in my mom's room, and sure enough, just as I said earlier, her bed hadn't been slept in. Well, all of a sudden, this guy and her had taken off. So we went on during the day. Everybody got up, and I was taking care of my household, dealing with my baby sister, who was about a year old anyway, and my other sisters, and we were all watching television or eating. And then these two gentlemen came to the front door, identified themselves as Gary police officers, and they came in and they announced that my mom, her name was Sarah, was found dead in Chicago. And I started screaming and hollering, "Scott, Scott, Scott." I just lost it, guys. But then I quickly looked around and I realized, oh, I'm all they got left now. So I had to get myself together. And it was tough, guys, as you can imagine. So we were in the house, and then a few hours later, an aunt came and picked us up. Not the one from Michigan who left, but another aunt. And she told us, you guys are going to come to my house in Chicago and stay with us. But we're going to decide what we're going to do with you guys, because all of you guys, nobody's going to take care of all of you. And basically, we were going to be split up, possibly put in the system and become fosters and so forth. Anyway, the truth of the matter is that it was bad. And we stayed at my aunt's house for 1 year, from 63 to 64. By the way, going back to 63, when my mother was killed, I never went to her funeral. I went to her wake, and I saw her body, and I couldn't. They had to have somebody stay home with me. I didn't go to the burial or any of that. I couldn't handle it. I was 13 then. And so anyway, my mom, my aunt came from Michigan, the one that was with us before, that carried the gun I was telling you about. She said, no, we're not splitting these kids up. I'm taking these kids, and we're going to have a house built for them. And she did. She moved us to an area in Chicago called Morgan Park, Maple Park, and had a house built. And when we moved into that house, it didn't end, because her husband and I didn't get along, because he wanted me to take his last name. And I says, I'm not. I can't, with all due respect. I said, because of the fact that I want to carry on my dad's name. and that I was the only one who could carry it on, of course, because, you know, we had the girls. So anyway, what ended up happening is that we didn't get along very well. And so when I was 14, that's when we moved into that area at 64. It was brought to my attention, number one, that Scott had pled guilty and that they were going to sentence him to jail this time for killing my mother. Listen to this. 10 years. Well, that's not the way it ended. 10 years in that time was brought to my attention meant 5 under the law. And further, it was brought to my attention that for good behavior, he would serve 3.5 years. I was not happy about that. When I get unhappy about stuff, I start asking questions, and nobody would give me any answers. They said, that's just the way it is. I said, that's not acceptable. And then it was brought to my attention that these people operate this legal system. And I said, what people? And they told me these people called lawyers. Well, at that time, the only lawyer I knew about as a kid was a guy on TV called Perry Mason. But I ended up listening to what they were saying, and then I went to what I did. When I was a kid, even before that, I used to love to go to the library. I used to love to read, and I still do to this day. And so I went to school. I was in 8th grade and asked the librarian if there were any books on lawyers, and she said yes. And so I checked out a book from the library, and it was not a very big book, but it wasn't small either. So I took that book home and read it cover to cover. Well, guys, the next day after that, anybody I met, I would introduce myself as my name is Richard Wright, and I'm going to become a lawyer. And that's how I felt. Well, immediately when it happened, opposition came. Guess where the opposition came from first? That very aunt who we were living with at first, who told us that they were going to split us up and didn't really want us at her house. But she said that I didn't have what it took. She said, my mom, she knows her sister. She says, my kids, on the other hand, they have their father and me, and we send them to school and so forth. And so she's telling this kid this. People, I did not respond to her. I just listened to her. I didn't tell her, I'm going to show you, because I don't teach that. I teach people that action speaks louder than words. And I just listened. I didn't answer or nothing. I never forget it. So anyway, I ended up finding myself in a situation where there were others who were telling me how difficult law school is. And I said, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And so as it was, another thing that happened is that I wasn't doing too well with my aunt and uncle. So I heard this lady on the radio. I liked her voice, so I went and found her and asked her to be my mother. She laughed, and we became friends. And then just to spin ahead to years later, 20 years after that, which would have been 84, we went to court. I was a lawyer by that time, and then she legally adopted me. But she had been in my life as a mentor during that period. Well, anyway, spinning back to the time staying at the house, it was not very, very good. In fact, I was so to the point that to stay out of the house, I spent a lot of time at the local church. But the local church made an offer to my aunt and uncle to send me to college on a scholarship, and all they had to do was sign. No money at all. My uncle says no, because he's not taking my name. So I said, that's okay. That's all right. I'm still going to do this. I don't know how, but I'm going to do this. And so I stayed in the house there. I would discover years and years later that another issue with this man was that he was sexually assaulting my sisters, of which there were 7 of them at that time. And it was tough. It was bad. So I went through high school, and while I was going through high school, the friends I made at the church, one of my friends asked his mom, because my aunt said she was going to be moving out of this beautiful house that she had built to move into the inner city. And I said, I'm not going down there. So I said, when I graduate, I'm going to leave. So my friend's mom and dad agreed to let me to come stay at their house. In the meantime, I registered for junior college at night, a school called Loop College, which is now Harold Washington of the City Colleges of Chicago, studying Cree law. At the same time, that same family, the mother had a friend who was a secretary in a big Jewish law firm in downtown Chicago, and got me a job working in the mailroom at that law firm. And when I started working at a law firm, I would meet those lawyers and I would introduce myself to them the same way. I'd say, my name is Richard Wright, and I says, and I'm going to be a lawyer one day. And they would smile, and they, they saw. And then I would go to work. Here's how I would dress. The guys would wear polo shirts, kind of like what I'm wearing here. But I didn't. I wore a white shirt and a tie all the time. That's just how I dressed. They took note of that. And one of their clients that I took a package to one day took note of it, and he made me his personal messenger. His name was Ray Kroc. The gentleman was the chairman and founder of McDonald's Corporation. And I interacted with him, and he encouraged me. In the meantime, I did something else that made life a little more harder. I wanted a family so bad. So a young lady I was dating, and we got married. And then I moved out of my friend's place, and we got our own first place. Didn't even have the money for beds or things like that, and we got a mattress. And then she was in school, and I was in school, and we ended up with a child coming in 71. Got married in 71, and then the next child, 72, were both girls. And so I continued working at the law firm as a messenger. And then the law firm saw that I was doing well at school because I stayed on the honor roll and dean's list. I had a full load at night. I used to have to study on the bus and the trains. I had books in those times, guys. We didn't have technology. I had big briefcases that I'd carry of books. And those were books that were pretty heavy. So at any rate, I continued doing it. I'd have to be at work at 8:30 in the morning, get off at 4, and have to be in class at 4:30, get out at 10 o'clock. I did that Monday through Thursday, and then Saturday I went to classes as well. And I stayed on the dean's list and the honor roll while I was doing that. And so it came to a point where then the law firm said, I'm going to move you from the mailroom to the file department, and I became a file clerk there. And then something happened to the law librarian, and they offered me that job, and I became the law librarian. And during that time, I'd sit there and listen to the lawyers as I was custodian of the books, putting the books away, and I'd listen to them, and I'd start reading the books. Well, I taught myself how to do legal research manually, so much that they found out that I knew how to write a brief, a memo. They knew I knew how to research, and they ended up hiring someone to take over my job and turning me into something that they called at that time a law clerk. You know what they call that today? Paralegal. And so I was doing that. In the meantime, I left the junior college and ended up going to a 4-year institution, majoring in political science and minoring in business, called Roosevelt University. And I got accepted there, and I continued my stream of honors. I continued raising those 2 girls. My wife at that time, interrupted by, of course, the birth of two of them, she continued in school as well. And so it came time for me to select a school, and I already knew what school I wanted to go to. I said, I'm going to go to Northwestern University School of Law. And everybody was telling me you need to apply to at least 3 schools. I said, I'm applying to 1. Not I was arrogant, I was just confident, guys. And I ended up putting together the application, sent it over by one of the lawyers who was an adjunct professor at Northwestern Law School. And my package, instead of being the little package, you know, for the application, my package was like this thick. It was a big box. What I had in it was writing samples. I had a story about what I had gone through in more details than I gave you tonight. And I shared that with the school. Well, the school had already established in their policies and material that they didn't do on-campus visits. And so I ended up talking to those people. They invited me to come, and they wanted me to see what was behind this. And I sat in a room with 4 people, and they asked me questions, and I answered them. And then they adjourned, and they came back, and they said, we love what we saw. Wow, but we don't make decisions about accepting students, but we love what we saw. But we will tell you this. I'll never forget it, guys. They said, we're going to send you a letter in the next few weeks that I think you'll be happy about. That was their way of telling me I had been accepted. And so I got accepted into the class of 1975, which would end up in the class of 78, 3 years later. So I started going there. And when I was going to law school, the first year I was told I could not work. So the law firm, I had to leave the law firm and end up working on my work full time. My wife was a teacher at that time. She had graduated with her degree in education and started teaching. Well, it turned out that that was the first year in history that Chicago Public Schools had a teacher strike. And they went on strike. And there went our income. I remember how tough it became when our lights went out. I had to study by candlelight because I was still in school. We ran into situations with food, so we had to eat cans of beans. We couldn't cook on the stove or none of that. It was just it was rough. So we sent the 2 girls to live with their grandmother for a little while, and she wasn't that far away. And in the meantime, and my work at school started to plunge. And I told one of my professors that I was going to probably take a leave. And she says, before you do that, come and talk to me in my office. So I did. I went and met in her office. And when I met her in her office, she said, what are you going to do? I says, told her why. She says, no, you're not. She says, we can work this out. Let me help you. She said, I don't have any money or any of those things. She said, but I can help you. And so I did. So long story short is I stayed and made it through those 3 years. During those 3 years, I met a number of people. One of them was a man by the name of R. Eugene Pincham. His son was a classmate that was in the class of 77, which is a class in front of me. And he ended up telling me his dad, likes to meet, young potential lawyers. And so I ended up going to their house with several other lawyers, and we sat and we talked. And I told his dad about what I had gone through. His dad said, you're going to need closure. And what his dad did was help me to get the files about what happened with my mom and my dad's case. And I have them even to this day. He also gave me some advice. He says, if you really want to learn this system, he says, be a criminal defense lawyer. Now, after all I've been through, that sounds kind of ironic, but I respected him, and I took him up on it, and I became a criminal defense lawyer. So I graduated. By this time I graduated, here comes the 3rd child, number 3. who's now going to be 41, because that's 41 years ago when I graduated. And so I told the law firm I wanted to leave, and I left the law firm, and I started working with other lawyers. And I started my own practice on my kitchen table. And then I started doing radio, developing a show called Know Your Rights, which was a play on words. It was spelled W-R-I-G-H-T-S. My phone number was 974-4487, which spelled W-R-I-G-H-T-S. And so I became very popular. I started doing entertainment, sports, radio, TV, because the lady who later became my mom, I became her lawyer and worked with her as well. Well, Mr. Pincham became a judge, and I worked in his campaign, and so I used to visit his courtroom, and he would appoint several of us to cases, and I became very good at what I was doing. I was so good that I could reach people, and my percentage on jury trials was like in the high 90s. Well, things were going okay, and so my first wife and I, we started going in different directions because of some beliefs that we had in terms of religion, and so we ended up divorcing in '87. And then I ended up meeting a young lady who was a client, and she and I dated, and I got married with her. And then she and I have a girl, little daughter. She's 29 now. And then she and I split up because I found out that her and the pastor were doing their thing, so that was it. So by early 94, I was done. And then I was, by the way, I was just, it was pretty tough. So then I met this young lady, and we became friends in '94, and then I got married in '94 July, later that year, because I wanted to be married. So it'll be 25 years this July, the 28th. I'll be celebrating my marriage with my wife, the one you see on the picture, if you look at that. Well, during that particular time in 1999, 91 to 93, I went to seminary, and I became a minister in '89. So while I was still married to my second wife. So anyway, I'm married to my third wife. I decided I'm going to retire from law at 50 years old and work in ministry, and I taught special education, ran a janitorial company, did closings for a title company. And I did all of that from about 2000 until about 2003 or 4, and then I started continuing just to do closings. Well, in 2011, someone introduced me to this school that I never heard of called Rasmussen College, and I was very interested in that because I love teaching. I had taught at-risk kids in special education in early 2000. And so they offered me a job to teach business law, and I got the job to teach residentially at the Romeoville campus. But as soon as I got there, I let them know that I was a criminal justice person. So they converted me to an adjunct part-time professor teaching criminal justice, and I continued doing that residentially. Then they came to me and said about 2013 that the program's going online. So I had to learn how to do that. Well, in 2014, a position opened up for State Program Coordinator of the School of Justice Studies for Illinois, which encompassed handling the School of Justice Studies program in Illinois, Romeoville, Mokena, Aurora, and Rockford campuses. And so I took that job. And then they made some changes. And then about 2015, they shifted us over into all full-time professors, and we made a transition. And since that time, I've been teaching full-time, average of 5 classes. They started changing from 11 weeks to 5.5 weeks, which is now where most of our classes are headed, as you know. And so I ended up starting to teach and began to teach many, many, many students. And when I began to teach the students, I began to share what I share with you guys, my experiences of who I am, and letting students understand that I am an unusual individual, but I believe in producing, as I said earlier, ethical, professional, and educated criminal justice professionals because of the fact of what I went through and what I've seen with the system. Let me back up a minute. When I was married to my second wife, her mother became the village mayor in a tough town in Chicago called Ford Heights. Well, I took the job as her village attorney, and she said that you can have the job. I said, but I need to carry a gun because this is tough. She said, only police officers can carry a gun. So I said, what if I became a part-time police officer? They said, we don't have the money to pay you. I said, don't worry, I'll still do it. And I did. I went to the academy and became a part-time police officer, never wearing a uniform. But I participated in the gangs activity investigations, drugs. I was involved in drug raids with the Cook County organization. I was involved with traffic stops and all of that stuff. So I became a police officer for 4 years doing that. And then it was brought to my attention during that period that the chief of police was crooked, and they brought in a new chief, and I became his internal affairs investigator. So I did all of that, not knowing that when I came to this job, would come to this job and find myself being able to be a person who teaches criminal justice, who has had actions with all the areas that fit, being a police officer, being a defense attorney, working as a local prosecutor, an investigator. I worked with probation officers, parole officers. I worked with corrections officers. I did all of that stuff. So I know the whole gamut of the program. So I bring this to you guys, and I'm here to provide you with guidance and direction. A little longer than I said, but I just wanted to share that with you. And that is why every week you'll see adversity is a springboard to success. I'm good at what I do as a teacher. I was good at what I did as a professional. And I want that to rub off on each and every one of you guys over the next 11 weeks. Many students who have been in this class, I have in classes down the road. Two of my favorite things is academic award ceremonies, and the most important one is the graduation. And there are some things I have up my sleeve that I can't talk about now. I'll talk about them later in the course, and there's a reason why. I'll disclose it to you later. But at any rate, the point of the matter is I have students all over the United States that I help. I write letters of recommendation. I do all kinds of things for my students. I just like helping you guys succeed. So with that, again, it's a little late. I'm going to say good night. I thank you guys for being patient and hanging in there, and I hope that I've said something that can help you to be successful. So I'll see you guys next week on at the same time, 8:30, but it'll be 8:30 to 9:30 back here again. And I'll be sending out an archive of this lecture right after this. So enjoy your 4th of July and have a good evening. Good night.